Hi guys, so I'm in the 747. I'm at the holding point in Hong Kong, runway 07 right. I'm going to do a crosswind takeoff on the 747. The biggest problem we have on the 747 for crosswinds is the sweepback. The sweepback gives the biggest problem on the Boeing 747, and also it has a large surface area which the wind is trying to push the aircraft and flip it over. The main thing is once we line up on the runway, the wind is going to be coming at 90 degrees from the right hand side, and I'll explain in the classroom how that affects the actual operation of the 747. If you put the vision back for me please, thank you, while you're still filming. Okay, so I'm going to line up now. I'm at the holding point 07 right at Kilo 1. We're on runway 07 right, and the wind is 160 at 30 knots. So we're just lining up now. So I'll do a quick takeoff to show you what I'm doing on the takeoff run on the 747-8 aircraft. Speeds are set with departing for a flight to Taipei. Our takeoff weight is 330 tons, just under 330 tons. So we're about nearly 115 tons below our maximum takeoff weight. So that's the sort of weights that this aircraft operates at. Okay, so I'm lined up now on runway 07 right. The tower has just given us clearance for takeoff, and they've given us a wind of 160 at 30 knots. So if I put this to center just to show you, there's 160 there. 160 is exactly 90 degrees. That's our direction of takeoff. 160 degrees over here, and it's coming at 30 knots. Now, in the old days, in the Boeing 747 classics and some aircraft types, it used to be that for each 5 or 10 knots, you preset a number of units on the control wheel. We don't do that anymore. The recommended technique is we start with the control wheel in the neutral position, and then as we go down the runway, as the wind effect tries to lift the wing, we put in aileron enough to just keep the wings level. So right now the wind is trying to lift the right hand wing, and I'll explain that in the classroom. So let's go. We're clear to take off. I can just see the wind sockets over there. You can't see it very clearly maybe where you are, but it's directly at 90 degrees. So thrust is coming up. And then I hit the toga and we're on our way. So I've started with the control column in the neutral. Thrust is set. So now you can see there the wind is trying to lift the wing, so I'm going to put in enough just to keep the wings level, 80 knots. V1. There you go. Now I've got the control column rotate. As I rotate, I input a little bit more because of the change of the angle of attack, and then I neutralize, and that should give me LNAV, and I've got LNAV now, and we're climbing away with a crab on the 747. That was a 30-knot crosswind takeoff. Easy. Put the autopilot to command, and we're on our way. And you can see the amount of drift we have there is nearly 10, 20, 22 degrees almost of drift, and the airplane's climbing away like that with a crab angle. Okay, so that was a takeoff. Now I'm going to put it for a landing. Okay guys, so here's the wind, 160, 30 knots. We're landing on 07 right. We're established on the ILS, localizer and glide slope, and there's the runway there in Hong Kong. So if you notice, the aeroplane has a crab angle. If you look here, have a quick look here. So there's 074, that's the track, and the aeroplane is pointing in the direction of the wind to counteract the wind effect. So there's quite a bit of drift there, about 5, 10, maybe 13, 14 degrees of drift. So we're crabbing like that. On the 747, we have to keep the wings level. especially on the 747-8 with the underslung engines. The inboard engines are very close to the ground. So in some aircraft you can do a wing down, side slip type, all the way to touchdown. On this aircraft you've got to be very careful doing that sort of technique because it's easy to pod strike the inboard engines. In fact, depending on the angle of bank that you put in, it's also possible with the pitch to actually pod scrape the outboard engine. So you've got to be very careful on the 747. We have to maintain wings level all the time. So because of that, we maintain a crab, and as we get down below into the flare, we can squeeze the rudder a little bit, which straightens the wing, and we keep wings level and touch down, and then we're back into the issues that we had on takeoff. On takeoff, I had aileron input, but I had left rudder to keep the aeroplane straight, and I'll explain a little bit about that in the classroom regarding what I'm doing, because you take off with cross controls, and when we land after touchdown, we'll go back into the landing issue of cross controls again. Left rudder to keep the center line, but right aileron input to keep the wings level. So I'll explain why that is, and the main reason is because the sweep back on the Boeing 747, and of course other jet aircraft too. Okay, so we've got the wind 160, so I'm going to attempt a landing with 30 knots of crosswind on the 747-8. Okay, we're moving. Autopilot is in command at the moment, and we have localize and glide slope arm for runway 07 right. There's the runway, and I'll take the autopilot out at about 1,000 feet or so to land the aircraft. Minima is about 230 feet. 222. Okay, we just passed 1,500 feet, land 3, roll out arm, flare arm, which means if I left it alone, the aeroplane would do an automatic landing. This is the sort of situation we have in poor visibility, fog, and so on. We do an automatic landing because the aeroplane doesn't need to look outside like the pilots need. If the visibility is poor, we let the autopilot do all the landings, but the airport facilities have to be available to allow the aircraft system. So 1,000 feet. Okay, so the pilot's going to take over now, and then the airplane's going to be doing this. No, it shouldn't, but okay, so disconnecting the autopilot, you hear the sound. Flight director. The auto throttle is off as well, so I'm now flying the aeroplane manually. And what you want to do is maintain the center line using the diamond, or slightly upwind, so keep the crab angle all the way to touchdown.
500.
Check. So I'm slightly upwind now, which is exactly where I want to be, because when I squeeze the rudder to get back on center line, it says checklisting complete, normal. We have actually completed
Plus
it.
100.
There we are. So I'm keeping wings level.
Minimums.
Minimums. There you go. On the center line.
50. 40. 30.
At 30, I
20,
squeeze the rudder a little bit.
10.
And then I keep wings level. The airplane just touched down. And now I'm back to the landing issue of keeping the wing level and selecting reverse thrust. And now I've got left rudder, but right aileron input. So I've got cross controls, and I'm keeping the aeroplane on center line with reverse thrust applied, like that. So if you look at my feet, I've got left rudder, but right wing down to keep the wings level. And we've come down to 60 knots, and we're on the ground safely in a 30 knot crosswind. 747. There you go. That's it. Hi guys, look at this. This is the Silver Bullet BCF 747, and I brought it in here just to show you the stuff I was talking about, the crosswinds. So let's say this airplane is taking off in that direction, the runways, so that you can see. And let's say there's a crosswind that's coming from this direction, hitting this wing like that. The same wind, if I move it here, is at an angle on this wing here. So with this one hitting this wing at the normal just means hitting this wing at 90 degrees. The wing is more responsive when the wind is hitting it at 90 degrees. So there's maximum lift on this wing and not much lift on this wing because the same wind is hitting it at an angle. So what's happening as the airplane's accelerating down the runway is that this wing wants to lift because of the wind effect and the higher lift. So the pilot is putting in aileron input to keep the wings level and keep the wing down. But the secondary effect of roll, by putting in roll, is yaw. If the pilot lets the airplane yaw, then you go off into the grass. So you stop the airplane yawing by applying left rudder with your feet. So you've got left rudder, but right aileron input for the wind. So you fly, not flying yet, but you go down the runway with cross controls. That's what actually happens. So that's a crosswind takeoff. Now you know.